I speak with you today, you'll leave feeling a little bit better and a little bit better equipped to stand out in the college application process, not only as an applicant, but as an Asian applicant, which, as we all know, although it's not always spoken about more broadly, is a real issue, is standing out as an Asian student amongst a qualified and highly talented applicant pool that can sometimes look homogeneous when you're reading applications on the other side of things. I'll tell you a couple of things about myself just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm a former admissions officer at Columbia University. I worked in Barnard's admissions office, and I visited high schools, many of which are represented here today by students who are in attendance. And I read applications and was part of the admissions committee that made decisions. So I was the person on the other side of things who was reading applications and deciding who was getting in. And I can tell you that when I read students' applications, and I would often come across Asian students with strong curriculum, perfect scores, perfect grades, doing lots of good extracurricular activities, and writing quite similarly generic essays, and it was hard to distinguish between students and decide which student or students to admit at any given time. So I'll talk today very honestly about ways in which you can make yourself stand out in a way that's honest and authentic, because that's a big part of it too, is making sure, and Clara alluded to this actually, is really, it is speaking from the heart, sometimes not too honestly, because you can go in the other direction. I was editing an essay this morning from an Asian student, actually, coincidentally, that went sort of in the other direction of being too honest and being inappropriately honest in a college admissions essay. But in any case, there's a way to do it, and that's the good news, and I'll talk about it amongst other things today. First of all, let me see, by a show of hands, how many students in this room play an instrument? And how many students are interested in math and science or have done things in math and science outside of school? Okay, so if everybody's being honest, there's actually not that much of the sort of homogeneousness in this room. My guess is that people are not being completely honest and everyone is not raising their hand, or that we have a lot of parents in the room. But anyway, those are two things that are kind of very common amongst Asian applicants: playing instruments and at a high level, and an interest in math, science, or the pre-professions. And I'm going to talk about, that falls into two different categories. I'm going to talk about the academic piece, also the extracurricular piece, and break those down into a couple of different things. So the academic piece is the courses that you take, as well as the grades that you earn. And I'll get to standardized testing in a couple of minutes. But your grades are very important, but it's always in the context of the classes that you take. So if your school offers AP level courses and you've taken none of them but have straight A's, that's not considered the most rigorous curriculum, and we would say that that's not necessarily the strongest academic background for sure. You'll find yourself in a difficult spot to get admitted to higher level schools if you haven't taken the most rigorous curriculum. Now, one thing I want to talk about is that students from one school are not compared to students at other schools. So if you go to a public school in New Jersey, you're not being compared to students at another public school in New Jersey, or to private school kids in New Jersey or New York. You're really just looked at yourself in the context of your high school. So how much or how well have you taken advantage of what your high school has to offer? So if you happen to attend a high school that doesn't offer AP courses, you're not going to be penalized in the process either. So assuming that your school does offer AP or IB level courses, which most do in this area, the expectation for schools, and the higher up you get, the more so, is that you're going to be taking those classes. It's also the case that the expectation is that you're going to be taking all 5 core academic classes through 12th grade, regardless of your interests. So if you are interested and you know that you want to be a doctor, and you're even going to apply to accelerated or combined pre-med programs directly out of high school for college, you still should be taking not only math and science, and then English, which is almost always required, but also history, and also foreign language through your 12th grade year. Foreign language, there's a little bit more flexibility on, but the others not so much. You want to at least take 3 years of foreign language, and not the language that would be spoken at home. So you wouldn't want to take, if Korean is spoken at home, we wouldn't say Korean is the foreign language for you, even though it would be for me or for somebody else. And so you want to make sure that you're taking a broad-based, what we would consider liberal arts preparation, and doing well in ideally all of the classes, or as well as can be expected. Everybody has strengths and everyone has weaknesses, and even amongst Asian applicants, not everybody is performing perfectly on everything, and that's obviously okay. And that's one thing I also want to speak to, which is a lot of students will come to me with actually very strong backgrounds and sometimes more modest backgrounds who are Asian, and be very nervous that because so many Asian students will present sort of perfectly, that they really have no chance at anything. And don't be too hard on yourself there either. If you have 750 or higher on pretty much any section of any test that is offered by the College Board, you're in good shape. It's a good thing. And let's turn our attention to standardized tests, which is something that for Asian applicants often is, at least they'll say to me, that's sort of the easy part for them, that they just study, they can do it, and take care of it. It is important to do well, and tests can be a big determining factor in college admissions, but it tends to more be that for tests, what we're looking for is just that they're not an issue. High scores are not going to get you in anywhere that you really want to go, and sometimes don't get you in, period. But low scores, or relatively low scores for a particular school, can certainly keep you out, regardless of what other things look like. And admissions officers don't tend to say that, but I can tell you as a former admissions officer that I didn't tell people that, even though I knew it to be true. And when you get to the essay, that's bad. You don't want to just be told what to do, because first of all, everyone would look the same, and that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to help people avoid. And again, colleges are looking for all different kinds of kids. But the key is that the main part of the essay, for instance, would focus on who you are today. And that's a different person than then. So you might spend just a handful of sentences about the old you, but then move into the transition to the you of today, because that's what colleges are getting, and that is the more positive reflection of you. But raising an issue that's quote-unquote negative, as long as, and again, there's not everything that would be appropriate, but raising something that kind of was negative about you, so to speak, is a really insightful thing as long as you can reflect on it honestly. And they do want to hear from you, so you should be saying, I missed out on opportunities as a result, and say I, and give yourself that sort of critical reflection. Don't stop at the generic place. Dig deep. Again, make it so that if I took your name off and somebody read it who knew you and your best friend, they would know which one was which. And that should be both your voice and the examples that you bring and the details that you include, as well as the more general things that will make it more human and make me, who comes from a different background than you, connect on whatever issue you're talking about, even if it's something that's totally foreign to me. Extracurricularly, those are kind of the pieces. Standardized test-wise, you do as well as you can, period. You want to get them as high as possible so they're a non-issue at whatever level you're doing. And then with the essay, again, just sort of be yourself, give an honest voice. You don't want it to seem like you're performing, but you can't make it seem like you're performing for them when you write. And so get somebody to read it who really has a clear understanding of that.